Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, a free site, bettingangle.us, a free site. It's October 29th, 2022. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. I'm going to do something I almost never do. I'm going to back away partly from an earlier video I did. Now, in the World Series, I still believe, as I sit here right now, that the Houston Astros ultimately beat the Phillies, right? I still believe the Astros are the next World Series champions. Most of my money bet on the World Series is on the Houston Astros, right? Just to be clear, I have money on both sides, but most of it is on the Houston Astros. In an earlier video, I said that I was going to wait a couple of days, right, to see how this plays out, a couple of games, to see how it plays out, and that if Philadelphia won the first two games of the series, then my assumption was going to be that Philly is going to win the series, and at that point I would pile in on the Philly side. Well, folks, game one had some surprises. The surprises were jarring enough where I've now reconsidered. I believe that game two poses an existentialist threat to the Houston Astros. The bet I'm taking here as a partial hedge is I'm taking the Phillies in game two. Now keep in mind, I hope I lose this bet, right? I privately think Houston wins game two. But because I have money on Houston in the series and need to hedge, I'm going to throw some money on the Phillies to win game two. You're getting a plus 129. Philadelphia has Zach Wheeler on the mound. Understand my thought process here. If Philly wins game two, then I believe the series is over because Philly would have 3 home games. Houston would only have 2 left. Houston would have to win 4 of 5 games to win the series. Right? Houston, the earliest Houston would be able to win the series would be in 6, and that would require a sweep in Philadelphia. So I believe for Houston, it's do or die in game two. I know 106 games, those are a lot of games, but it's do or die in game two. And let's just say I did not like, this is the big revelation here, I simply did not like the way Houston lost game one. I believe you're dealing with a wave right now that we all have to acknowledge. Right? Philadelphia has scored the last 6 runs of this World Series. I believe we need to acknowledge this wave. We need to acknowledge how gutted Houston might be if things don't go their way in the early innings of game two. Now let's talk about what happened. The crowd was hyped. You're in Houston. We understand that Justin Verlander, the likely Cy Young of the American League, isn't Justin Verlander in World Series games, right? He just can't match his regular season numbers or even his regular postseason numbers in World Series games, right? But here he was with a chance at redemption, a little bit older, right? In front of the home crowd. They're hyped. He comes out. He opens the World Series with a strikeout. You notice on the gun, he's hitting 96 miles an hour. right? This is not Verlander having a bad day. No, this is Verlander no-hitting the Phillies through the first 3 innings. Then, of course, he gets run support. Houston is up 5-0. That's where we are. Houston crowd, Verlander on the mound, up 5-0. Folks, that should have been the ball game. Instead, Philly comes back. Not in one big inning, but over 2 innings. They knock Verlander out of the game. They tie the game, 5-5. Now, at this point, you're thinking, whoa, what's happening here, right? I know this Philadelphia team, fifth biggest payroll in baseball, right? Fifth biggest payroll in baseball. I know this Philadelphia team is scrappy and has been hot of late. But to come back against Verlander from a 5-run deficit was shocking enough. Well, then you get the coup de grace, and this has to be gutting. Houston gets out of a bases-loaded jam. They're hyped up. You get to the 9th inning. Now, keep in mind, we're looking for anything that might have hangover, right? We're wanting to make sure that Houston doesn't get demoralized in a way that might impact other games in the series. So you get to the 9th inning. And folks, the way the 9th inning ends is heartbreaking. The right fielder on the Phillies comes in and makes a spectacular defensive play on a ball that, if it just dropped, would have ended the game. In other words, you're Houston, you understand that you're on the verge of giving away, literally giving away, a game in which you had the likely Cy Young winner, certainly a Hall of Famer on the mound, and a 5-run lead. And here you are in the 9th inning. The game's now tied. You have runners on base. And the right fielder for the Phillies, Castellano, makes a great play. And we end up going to extra innings. Then, of course, in extra innings, Philadelphia hits a home run. Right? Think about that. They hit a home run. You get to the bottom of the 10th. Houston gets guys on base. You get one of those rare calls. Diaz, a Houston player, gets hit by a pitch. He's not awarded first base because the umpire rules that he leaned into the pitch. Now, I believe he did. But let me tell you, that's a rare call. Needless to say, Houston's attempt to tie the game in the bottom of the 10th comes up empty. So there's going to be panic, especially since Houston's lost some recent World Series. Verlander, if you, like me, privately had a Verlander 4 Series MVP bet, thinking, hey, if Verlander comes out, wins Game 1, wins Game 5 in Philly, depending on how they handle the rotation, or wins Game 4 in Philly, has 2 wins under his belt with his long career and with his likely Cy Young award coming, you thought, okay, maybe this guy is going to win the MVP of the series, right? I also have a bet on Yordan Alvarez, right? Jordan for the Astros. Well, Verlander's not going to win MVP now, folks. You can't give up a 5-run lead and still be in contention, especially when you don't play every day. More importantly, understand Houston came into this World Series unbeaten in the postseason. Right? This was the team who was going to try to go unbeaten through the playoffs to match the Big Red Machine, the 76 Big Red Machine. You might remember them. Pete Rose, Joe Morgan, Johnny Bench, Tony Perez, George Foster. The only guy who smiled on the team was Ken Griffey. Well, that's gone. So now the question is it all gone? You have game two. I don't like what I'm seeing here. Right? Bryce Harper for the Phillies, right? A guy who I consider to be a nuclear weapon, is still swinging the bat well. Right? The Phillies are doing exactly what they've been doing the last 2 months. They're knocked down, they dust themselves off, they get up, and they're throwing punches. Understand the wave that's taking place right now, and there's a question as to whether it's already hit the beach. Let me repeat this. In Houston, the Phillies have scored the last 6 runs of this World Series. They're already by the ace of the Astros staff. Right, folks? This is perilous. I think the Astros win game two. Understand, I believe the Astros have to win game two to stay alive. Because I have money on the Astros, rather than wait for the end of the second game before I start putting more money on the Phillies, I'm going to take a little bit here. I'm getting a plus 129. In other words, I'm getting better than even money odds. I'm going to, right here, take Zach Wheeler and the Phillies to win game two. I hope I lose the bet. I hope Houston comes out and looks like Houston. But you need to understand the overhang. Right? I'm in the Bay Area. I remember Dusty Baker in a World Series that looked like the Giants had won it, coming out to the mound and taking the ball from Russ Ortiz. You need to research Dusty Baker's past. He's the manager of the Astros. Dusty has come this close to winning World Series in the past, and then something always happens. It gets away from him. I'm just telling you, these are the kind of things that you start to think about. I'm not blaming Dusty for game one, but I'm just telling you, the Astros are going to be looking around at each other, especially if they fall behind in game two. Someone is going to think, wow, why can't Verlander deliver in World Series games? Why is his World Series ERA over 5? Someone else is going to look at Dusty and they're going to say, wow, has Dusty taken us as far as he can take us? Right? The world is looking at the Phillies as some upstart team. The Dodgers were the team that were supposed to come out of the National League. Phillies didn't even win 90 games. What are they doing hanging around with us? Right? Understand, Bryce Harper did not hit a home run yesterday. But yet the game ends on a home run. Phillies swinging a big bat this postseason. Right? So yeah, I'm a Houston bettor who's nervous. So to hedge my exposure, I'm taking the Phillies in game two because in part I'm getting a plus 129. Right? But if you're a Houston backer, be afraid, be very afraid. Phillies 13 games over 500 at home. You don't want to go to a game three down 0-2 having already not only given up home field advantage, which the Astros have done by losing game one, but then putting yourself in a hole by losing game two. right? You don't want to give an upstart team hair on their chest. More courage than you should, right? All you need to know about this Philly team is they're down 0-5 against the Cy Young winner, likely Cy Young winner. And then over 2 innings, not one, this is not a 5-run explosion, but over 2 innings, they come back from the 5-run hole. Then, of course, they get the bases loaded. That inning fizzles. And they're still at it, right? Making defensive plays, pushing this game into extra innings on a great play, and then winning the damn thing the very next inning, taking the crowd out of the game. Right, folks? Fifth highest payroll in baseball. Maybe the talent is on the roster and the odds makers who've made Philly, after a game one win, a plus 129 underdog in game two. Maybe the gamblers have misdiagnosed this team. Maybe we were fooled by April, May, and June and don't realize that the stars are in alignment here, right? Put differently, as long as Bryce Harper is getting on base multiple times in a game and is swinging the bat, and as long as it's the other guys carrying the team right now, you need to be concerned. John Smoltz put it best at the beginning of the game. He said, look, the Phillies don't have the pitching depth that the Astros have, right? As I've said here, I think the Astros are the better team. But Philly's starting pitching has been delivering, right? His point is that the pitching really has carried the team. Well, understand, going into this, it's the pitching. Since Philly can match Houston hitting, it's the pitching that gave Houston the edge in a series where Aaron Nola got roughed up, the Philly starter, in game one. Just understand that Philly somehow is up 1-0 because they got to Justin Verlander. It's troubling. I have Philly in game two. I hope I lose it. This is really a hedge play for me. I need for every gambler here to think for themselves. Game one was as bad as could happen. You would have been better off, quite frankly, with Philly destroying Houston and then having Houston just dismiss the game as a one-off, or Houston getting indignant and saying, how could they come in here and beat us up like that? We're going to come back and stuff like that. But to lose like this, where Houston's in the catbird seat, up by 5 runs, with Verlander on the mound, right? Getting strikeouts, throwing in the mid-90s, right? To lose like this, where you have runners in scoring position, you only need one guy to cross the plate in the 9th inning, and the right fielder on the Phillies makes a great play to send this into extra innings, right? To lose like this might leave a team gutted. We're going to find out in the early innings of game two. Because I have money on Houston, I can't take the risk. I'm taking Philly in game two at a plus 129 to reduce my exposure. That's how I'm playing it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section of this video. Tell us what you saw in game one, right? Tell us why Verlander couldn't hold the 5-run lead, right? Tell us why Raimundo and some other guys seem to be hitting the baseball as well as they are, right? Tell us how you have bet this series and what is playing out the way you thought it would and what's not playing out at all. Understand, Philly's bullpen isn't supposed to be that great, but yet they held Houston after Houston exploded for 5 runs. Held them in Houston. I look forward to your comments. Thanks for stopping by.